Welcome to Constructive Interference, where visionaries sharpen visionaries. And in this episode, I sit down with Kyle Mealy, founder of Next Level Revenue and visionary behind EMC and ENRG, for a conversation about revenue, strategy, and the freedom visionary leaders are really after. We get into where entrepreneurial companies leak revenue and why marketing and sales can no longer operate separately, and how his work is built around solving the gaps most businesses never see. That leads us into a broader conversation about visionary thinking, the loneliness that often comes with it, and why building the right environment for people is often what creates the freedom every entrepreneur is actually after. Welcome to Constructive Interference. My guest today is Kyle Mealy. How you doing, Kyle?
Oh, I'm great, Rufus. It is so good to see you.
Good to see you too, man. So Kyle is the CEO and founder of Next Level Revenue, which we're going to talk about today, but we're also going to talk about how he is the visionary of EMC. So he'll be able to tell us a little more about that company and some of the other tie-ins to that company. But before we kind of get started, just let the audience get to know you a little bit more, Kyle, I like to ask this question because it's a very telling question, but we all tend to have those pet peeves, right? We all have those things that trigger us, the things that just set us off. What is yours?
I'm going to give you two because it's such a darn good question. Number one is ice in my soda. Don't put ice in my soda.
So you'd rather have it warm than ice in your soda?
100%, because then it's not watered down.
You prefer it cold versus...
Yeah, of course. It all starts cold, better warm than it is watery.
Note to self, if I'm ever serving you a frosty beverage, not to put ice in it. Gotcha. So, I mean, do you have like those little stones that you keep around in your freezer to where you can put the...
Occasionally, but so here's the lesson to take away from this. One, I like to move fast. I don't want it watered down. So rarely do my drinks last long enough to get warm.
Yeah, a buddy of mine, I was like, I hand him a beer. I'm like, you want a koozie? He says, wasn't planning on keeping it that long. So
I'll do a koozie. My wife is big into koozies, and her family is. They make custom ones. So that's about, especially in the summer. That's when it's reasonable, but it's the cold months, so I don't need any more ice. I got enough out my window.
So then what's the second pet peeve?
Slow people in grocery stores, airports, or festivals. I call them doot-de-doos. They're just doing this doot-de-doo.
Doing the slow walk.
My brain explode.
It's a parking lot thing for me. It's like, okay, I'm in the parking lot. Yes, I know you have the right way, but doesn't mean you have to use up everyone's time by doing the slow walk. Yeah.
Holly hates when I go around them, like I go really aggressively fast around them.
Yes.
She doesn't like that.
Well, the reason why I ask that, it's kind of telling, because when we get set off, it's kind of a violation of our values somewhere. So anger is usually a secondary emotion. So what do you think that means to you? I mean, as it relates to your values being violated, how do you think these pet peeves kind of translate into the antithesis of what you value?
I'm very lucky. I had a really, really powerful set of mentors really early in what I now know is my career, and values were really built into me as behaviors way earlier than most people kind of come to them. And I've always known that urgency is a value of mine. And so as I've grown, one of the ways I talk about it is I love the play Hamilton. It's the only musical and the only play I've gone and seen, just being honest, but I love it. And in it, he's just always acting as though he's running out of time.
Yeah.
And when somebody does 4 things, he does 40 things. And by the time, I read his biography now, I've just kind of been obsessed with this human. By the time he was like 30, he had done things that most people, like 10 times as much as most of us will ever do in a full lifetime. And that's just who I am. I can't get away from it. And I realized that once I had an employee way long ago, and I was mowing my lawn, and I was white knuckle mowing my lawn because I was so frustrated. Anger is a secondary emotion at why he was moving so slow to get some stuff done. And I'm like, gosh, I wonder if I could pay him more and he would go faster, is what I thought. Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, he doesn't value speed. And that's when it was this epiphany for me, is like, I would pay more money to go faster. Mm-hmm. That is literally what value is. I value it so much that I would reach into my pocket. I would take, risks to go fast.
Oh, yeah. I love that about you. I mean, I love that how that translates into kind of a core value is that you value time, you value respect of time. And when someone is not respecting your time, that's where you get kind of triggered, is that, hey, I can understand that you don't respect your own time, but respect my time and the people around me. So now I don't know how this translates into ice in the soda. How would we gosh, I don't know. I'm not that good at psychology, but I bet there's some deep-seated, rooted issues being violated there, man. You just like quality. You like quality, okay? You like quality because you like the essence of how it's supposed to be served, not watered down. I can go with that.
Ooh, that's going to cause some quiet reflection after this because the answer that popped in my head was different, but that's got me thinking. The answer that popped into my head was it's about giving giving more.
Mm-hmm.
And, I'm cheap. It's just, I'm very cheap. And I own it, right? I know who I am. And you get less bang for your buck when your soda's half ice. That sounds
No,
stupid,
I can
but it is.
completely
It
relate.
is
So
true.
it's funny. It's always been like this, and I don't know. I don't know if I'm cheap. I'm just thrifty. But from what, like, well, I'll take my kids. My wife, and we'll take our kids, and as long as I can remember, I'm always like, "You getting water, by the way, because I'm not paying for a $5 Coke." Okay, and this is back when we probably couldn't afford it, but now that I can afford it, I don't like it. And it's funny because my wife will always get a Coke. She doesn't care. I'm like, I've already made peace with that. This is just, it comes with the package. She's getting a Coke at every meal. But the kids, they'll order a Coke and they'll just kind of side eye, like, is dad going to react? And usually I'm just like, just looking down, not making any comments, because I'm going to get them a Coke anyway. Why not? Why make them feel guilty about it? But yeah, I'm that guy. I'm that guy. Yeah, because I'm like, I know how much it cost you to make that soda, and I know how much
That's
the
also true.
markup is and what you're charging me, and it's almost like and I know that you're ripping me off, and I'm just going to take it. I'm the consumer. I'm the one that's paying the bills. I get to have a choice in the matter, and so yeah, I don't know. I overthink this stuff.
I've never had a dessert at a restaurant. Let's just summarize it that way.
Well, sometimes you have to have a dessert, but yeah,
Well, if it's my birthday and I get the free one, 100%.
it is about the experiences that we value. I don't necessarily. Of course, I like a good meal. Good food is better than not good food, but I don't value the fine dining experience as much as my wife does. So when we go out to a $400 dinner, it's like, oh, I could have used that so many other ways that I would have gotten more value. But the time spent having this great meal, being waited on, and all that at a nice restaurant, it's like when I've always said, if she always says, so where do you want to go eat? And I'm like, where I want to go eat? I want to go eat someplace that has a drive-through that has a burger, because I'm that simple. And I always said, if I ever start a restaurant, it's either going to be called I don't know or I don't care. Because if you think about every time you ask your significant other where do they want to eat, it's either I don't know or I don't care. And if I named a restaurant there, think about how many people would come,
It would be brilliant. And you
because
offer
that's the first response.
simple food, and no ice and sodas.
Yeah, so now you all have a peek into the mind of a visionary, someone that stays up at night. This is what happens at 4 a.m. when the cable TV's out. I think about shit like this, okay? All right, so moving on. Next level revenue. So for me and the audience to know more about what your business does, tell me about what the best referral would be. How would I refer someone to next level revenue? What kind of pain am I looking for that you're solving?
Yeah, I think it's best summarized by this. I can do the kind of traditional marketing and sales demographics, and I would say, it's a $3 to $15 million revenue company. They have a transaction that is like B2B. I say that very intentionally because, the world has gotten a lot more, I call it schmurgled lately. And so it's not as simple as it used to be a lot of our marketing and sales comes from enterprise and from the late 90s. Like that's a lot of the theorems come from that, not from the entrepreneurial world. And so when I say like B2B, it means there's a salesperson in the process and it is a high ticket product. So multiple thousands of dollars, monthly recurring revenue, usually service base, um, a sales cycle that isn't transactional, right? It isn't click buy. And then where we come in is usually when they had a VP of kind of sales and kind of marketing, and it kind of didn't go anywhere. The founder's trying to leave the sales and marketing seat. They're on their second or third agency in the last 6 months, marketing agency. They have that marketing doer that they're trying to squeeze real hard. They've failed at sales hires. I mean, anything in that realm is exactly what I designed Next Level Revenue to solve.
Okay. So I've always kind of looked at, and I've heard it this way, is that half the dollars that I spend on marketing is a waste of money. I just don't know which half.
Yep.
So that's where you all kind of come in to do the math
Yeah.
and the science of analyzing where the right half of their marketing dollars spent. Would you say that's accurate?
I love that paradigm because it's ancient
Mm-hmm.
and I think it's inherently flawed. So, but
Mm-hmm.
it's that exact kind of lack of trust in marketing that we are countering 100%. What I realized, not that long ago is a lot of our understanding of marketing and sales is based on these outdated principles. That would be one of them. And what I realized because I didn't come up in marketing and sales. I'm one of those classic entrepreneurs who just has done a bunch of stuff, had to figure it out, and then tried to tell everybody about it. I realized that there was a really predictable way of looking at the math between all the steps in a buyer's journey. And all I did was codify that. And then I saw these consistencies. Gosh, everywhere I went, there was always these consistencies. And when you measure those consistencies and you actually tweak them and optimize them, it gets really predictable what happens. And so that's kind of where the revenue cascade was born, is that there's this idea that like water flowing downhill, there's these stages and bumps. And if you have leakages, you're not getting revenue, water, life, revenue. And so that was kind of the original hypothesis I had, as I had found in the rearview mirror. I've been really successful at growing entrepreneurial companies, but I literally was sitting down with a blank piece of paper like this going, how did I do that? How did I know I had a hand in this? I'm going to be humbly confident, say I know I did something, and I know it is not in a textbook. So what was it? And that's where kind of the idea of Next Level Revenue was born.
So those leakages, where are you finding that most companies are having those leakages? Is it, I mean, I'm sure every company is a little bit different, but I'm sure that there's usually a usual suspect, I suppose.
Yeah, there is. And it's most of the time just first in the philosophy that they have, right? Marketing brings in the leads and sales closes them, or sales goes and pounds on that door. Well, the first leakage is just understanding the modern buyer journey. And it's not like that anymore. You're going to listen to a podcast and you're going to get something in your brain. I would call that awareness. But you're not going to go and click and buy something from that. You're going to go do some research. So that's when Google search shows up. Then you're going to go look at somebody's LinkedIn profile. Then you might put it on pause for 6 months. Then all of a sudden you see that person who's on that podcast at an event, or their name pops up on your LinkedIn feed. And all of a sudden you start to make some more decisions. You visit their website now. Now you download the lead magnet. Now you're in their sales process. And so what most people think is that it is a straight line of attribution. Like, I do an event, I get money. It doesn't work like that. So once you get over that hurdle, that's when people have the biggest unlock in my experience. And then it's dissecting their sales and marketing systems to find where the biggest gaps are. Oftentimes there's a big hole in the sales process, or there's a massive hole in something in their marketing. And what's an example of a hole? So in a sales process, I had a great client. They had 10 leads a month. I mean, they were just a lead factory. These are $100,000 deals that they do. So 10 leads, $100,000 deal, that's good money. They were only closing one. Where were they going? Well, I found it deep down in the sales process. There was one step they were really messing up, and they were going from like 8 opportunities to 1 closed deal. Well, we fixed it. In the marketing side, where's the leads? Where's the leads? I had a different client. Where are the leads? Well, you go to their website and their contact us form wasn't set up and linking to anybody's email at all. Nobody had thought to look at that. So some of these are kind of brain dead, and I feel bad when I bring them to people, but if you're not thinking about it systematically and you're just thinking about strategy first, you're in trouble.
Right. That's interesting. We talked about pet peeves earlier, and that's one of the, I don't know, pet peeve, but it annoys the crap out of me is when I'm I take the time to Google search or go to their website, and usually I'm looking this as the, yellow pages. Basically, I just want to find a contact, and I have to search all over that page. I have to hit a couple links to contact us. I just want a phone number. Just at the top, just put the phone number. If there's other things you want me to know, I'll go look at it on my own, but I'm just needing a phone number because I want to talk to somebody. And you're making the process so hard that I just get annoyed that it's like, if I have to try this hard to get your phone number, what's the rest of my experience going to be like with you? But that's on me.
No,
I don't know why more people don't do it. So
I couldn't agree more. One of the things I like to say is, our clients and our people and our prospects and our customers, they're not rats. They're not mice. We're not trying to build a better mousetrap for them. Let's stop it. Let's treat them like adults. Let's treat them like people. They want answers. Give them the answer. Stop hiding it. Stop nesting it in all that garbage.
now, so with this business, I mean, you do this as a fractional CRO.
Yeah.
Is that accurate?
Yeah. CRO has this term that it's usually on the sales half. And my whole hypothesis is that marketing and sales, they actually not only aligned, but they've schmurgled to the point that there's no difference in these entrepreneurial companies, because your best salesperson could be your best marketer. And what I mean by this, they're talking to the customers. They're actually hearing the pain points. Let's leverage them instead of separate them. Your best marketers need to be salespeople because they need to think about it from your perspective. And if you just want a phone number and they're over here trying to make a fancy mousetrap, well, we've missed the boat. So yes, we serve on the leadership team as the fractional chief revenue officer. Revenue to me is marketing plus sales equals revenue, because it came from this pure point of frustration where, marketing agencies give you these beautiful reports and none of it has anything to do with dollars. Salespeople promise profitability and, well, this one's going to close, this one's going to close, and then it doesn't. All we care about is revenue. And so we are not these go-to-market architects that are highfalutin enterprise need, how big is your budget? No, we come in more like MacGyver, because we usually can find and triage 2 or 3 major disruptions in your marketing and sales at the same time, homogenize them, and then turn up the revenue fairly quickly. Because what I have found is there's usually leakage. And if you clean up the leakage, you're making money quick.
So in your particular business, where do you find that you're winning clients or customers or business if compared to other CROs or CMOs out there that are basically saying, hey, we've built the better mousetrap, or our way of doing it is better than next level revenue? I mean, do you have a differentiator that y'all basically say we're different this way? Or
the way I talk about differentiator, I've kind of tried to evolve that terminology a little bit. I caught myself. I've been saying evolve like our system is an evolution, just the next logical step. I've realized that what I've developed is more of a revolution when it comes to marketing and sales. And so differentiator, pain points, those aren't things we talk about a lot. Do they influence us? Absolutely. I think that's foundational. So I talk about a revenue strategy statement. And when I talk about a revenue strategy statement, it's our North Star that we aim towards. And our North Star at Next Level is we treat marketing and sales as revenue. So it's one word. And then we play the game like Moneyball. Now, if you're not familiar with the movie or the book Moneyball, it's the story of bringing analytics to a tired old system of managing, professional baseball teams. And so that's a good way of
people on base. Right.
We're analytics obsessed. Like back to the original, which 50%, it's like, let's go find that answer. Let's not allow that to be the truth. Let's go actually figure it out.
So, you know what I do as a financial planner. So I work with business owners. So one of the things I like to learn more about, especially when talking to visionaries, is where do you see the biggest opportunity to invest your money inside of your business? Where do you see the biggest ROI for yourself?
I've been pushing it into my people, truly. I am just open and honest. I'm people heavy, because my vision is that this isn't the thing I spend my life doing. I don't mean this in a bad way. Next Level Revenue was a means to an end. In the end I have in mind is choosing what I work on and spending as much time in my passion as I want. And so am I passionate about Next Level Revenue? You bet. But if it's always Kyle all the time, I'm stuck. I've built a job and I didn't want to build a job, but I love my people. And so the biggest ROI I focus on is people.
That's great. No, look, I love that answer. And a lot of people, if they stopped and thought about it, that would be their answer too, but they don't stop and think about it. They're thinking about, okay, this piece of equipment or building it into another site or getting into this market is where they, and these are all viable things and absolutely should be considered. But you're right. I think essentially you're building this giant cage for yourself that you can't step away from. I mean, I think where you're at, I mean, how confident do you feel right now that you can step away from next level revenue for 6 months?
Oh, it's a good question. You know, I wish I'm going to be honest with my answer. I'm not there yet. And that's the truth.
Okay.
But I have a team that I think has taken that mantle and taken that on. And the other part of it is I do love that work. So I don't think I could step away personally for 6 months yet. I wouldn't want to. And that's really what this has been about, is the freedom to do what I want with who I want, getting paid appropriately. The EOS life, that Gino wrote. And so I think right now I wouldn't step away for 6 months. Could I? No. Truthfully, I couldn't. But what we've agreed to is in this phased approach towards that world, I'm working towards 1 day a week as visionary over at Next Level Revenue. And I think this is how we're getting there, so that I could make that choice.
And that's the ROI that I'm talking about, is saying if you're investing in the right people and having them take on more and more of the role of you as a CEO, then the return on investment is the creation of time, which you value, by the way, and that time being spent on things that are going to ultimately make more money for you, if money is the goal, or just the next level of success that you're looking for. And I think you're right. Being able to have the means to afford to do what you want when you want with whoever you want for as long as you want, and if that is to go build another business or spend more time with family or a combination of all these things, that's great. So no, I totally see the bigger picture there, and I think you're absolutely right. In order for you to be able to step away, if you wanted to step away for a year or 6 months, 3 months, whatever the case might be, to say, hey, I really need to give my attention to this project over here because this is what I'm most passionate about, but this is demanding of something that only I can do. Everything else that I've established here at Next Level Revenue, if I can outsource and have someone else do it, then I should probably invest in that. People want what you do. They don't always necessarily want you, right? And that's even me as a planner. And I spend a lot of my time as visionary and not necessarily as the technician in my business. So even when I'm talking to potential clients, I'm talking to them, yes, we would love to have you come on as a client and work with my team with zero expectation that you're going to be working with me. In most cases, they just want to know I'm somewhere in the building, or that these people share the same values with me, or was trained by me, and that there's that continuity. But it's, and me having, like, even after this podcast with you, I'm going to go step in kind of like a doctor, and basically just check the charts and like, how's everything going? And the advisor's going to tell me where they are, what their update is. I'm like, looks good to me. You're in good hands. All right, call me if you need anything. And that's all. Sometimes that's all they want. And again, they want what I do. They don't always necessarily need me to do it. And I think that's where, because I have the other passion projects that I'm looking at building. But yours, I know, is EMC. That's where your passion is right now. So tell us a little bit more about EMC.
Yeah, it's a beautiful segue. I love the doctor analogy. It's funny. One of my final steps at Next Level is I'm building the final layer of training for our future CROs. So, and we're using a lot of doctor metaphors. So that was really funny and timely. And you said something interesting about Next Level and making more money. And I would say, you're darn right, I want to make more money. And I found that there's two types of people. And I'm going to get to EMC in a second. There's people who want to make money as a scorecard. Sometimes that gets into the greedy realm, right? I have more numbers than you do. But there's also people who just want to, this is how they determine success. And I don't think that's bad always. It's just bad if it's used inappropriately. I look at it from this side. I make money to make more meaning. And meaning is up to me to decide. I spend a lot of my energy on my nonprofit, my wife's nonprofit, and EMC. EMC is this vehicle to be that wealth builder so I can really have fun. I mean, truly have fun for me. That's where I want to make meaning, is have fun. And so EMC is the entrepreneurial media company. It has kind of two key pieces of the puzzle. It's an investment vehicle, so it acquires the best entrepreneurial content on the planet and invests back into it without an intention of interfering. So that's an important piece of the puzzle. We want to capture great content, and then the second half is to preserve and promote it. So we invest, not interfere, and we preserve and promote. And I just, I've seen that, the next generation of entrepreneurs are learning a very, very, very different way than I learned. And I didn't learn it the best way. I picked it up just from scraps that I could grab. And so my vision is to bring it all together in a place that can last, 100 years. It sounds crazy to say, but I'm serious about it.
Walk me through kind of an example of what that might look like for someone that is working with EMC.
Sure. Our most recent acquisition, we took a strategic stake in the Entrepreneurial Leap business. Entrepreneurial Leap is one of the books by Gino Wickman. We have Gino's obviously the founder of it with Ryan Henry, and we formed a partnership over there. And the idea was simple. This content in the Entrepreneurial Leap Academy must get in the hands of the future generation of entrepreneurs. It is the speed pass to the future. And so what has Entrepreneurial Leap done? We're not going to mess with the content. We're not getting in the visionary's way, which is Ryan Henry. We're just amplifying. We're just adding entrepreneurial stories and media to support their goals. And so what does that look like? Yeah. We're investing in the infrastructure, and then we're investing in other vehicles to bring that content out into the world.
Okay. So you're kind of the marketing part of the equation to where you're connecting the buyers and the sellers, essentially.
I would call it that. Yeah. We think about I think about it as a thin shell of shared services. That's a tongue twister. I need to switch that up. But a thin shell of shared services to promote and preserve that content. We think about, production, film, TV, social. We think about revenue systems like Next Level Revenue. I'd be lying if that system didn't bring itself into EMC. We think about books and publishing, and we think about technology. And so we think those four avenues are really what's going to bring our ability to invest and not interfere and preserve and promote into the next 100 years.
Using the same math, I guess, equations and formula, if you will, as you kind of did with Next Level Revenue, and just pivoting it over to this part of it.
If you look at it's an obsession with data. It's marketing and sales for the next generation using the vehicles that they care about most with content that's way better than mine.
Okay. I'm with you. Now, you had mentioned NRG. NRG. What is that? And how does that relate to what EMC is?
Yeah, I've got ELEAP, EMC, ENRG, right? All these things.
You're all. We have to need a cipher to determine all the different things that you're doing.
Yeah, the hair is gone from all the fire, and I'm getting a new polo because this is probably one of the few times you'll see me without my blue polo that just has an E on it, because if it's the entrepreneur, it's for me. Okay. If you really think about my interest, the interest is in the entrepreneur. That's what I'm focused on. So EMC tells the entrepreneurial content and the entrepreneurial stories. Energy is the place for the entrepreneur. It is the community for the path to entrepreneurial mastery. What does that mean? Entrepreneurial path to mastery, it's the same path I took. I just fell into it because I was lucky. Where did it start? Well, it started with ELEAP and Rocket Fuel and EOS and Traction, and then EOS Life and 10 Discipline Shine. And so I just see this world where implementers, integrators, entrepreneurs, and vetted, thoughtful experts all get in a room and solve problems and solve real issues and help each other first. And that's what Energy is. It's the Entrepreneurial Network Resource Group. And we went from 4 chapters on, I think, June 1st to it is December. We'll call it December 1st is close enough. There were 68 that morning. We added 62 chapters across the country in 4 or 5 months. Pretty wild.
Really? And what does a chapter look like? I mean, how many people in general, and what do they do?
Generally, it's a once a month meeting, and we kind of jokingly call it a mini EOS conference because there's such a beautiful buzz at the EOS conference, right? You have all these different people all coming together with this shared language, trying to get better, and all the different voices are in the room. So we're replicating that to some degree, but it's localized. So I'm working on one in Milwaukee, by the way. So if you're in Milwaukee and listening to this, please come join that chapter. And what do we
You got
do?
anything? You don't have anything in New Orleans? I would have known about it, right?
I think there is one. It's grown so fast. I don't know where they all are. Sorry, but my team is brilliant over there. Kathy, Kevin, Rain, you guys are amazing. Kate, thank you. I believe so. I can look it up for you afterwards, but I think there is one. We should talk about that too. Anyway,
Cool.
so what are we doing over there in a meeting? It's a 90-minute meeting. There's content from the implementer, and the implementer runs the meeting, and the OS implementer runs the meeting. And then we get into IDS, issue, discussion, solve, with whatever's going on in those businesses. Usually what we found is the content is priming the conversation. So if we're talking about, a 90-minute world or 90-day world, or, we have these experts that come in. So, Ben Wolf will come in and talk about the different types of integrator or and so on. And then that's usually what the conversation is about. People take action items and hold each other accountable between the meetings and come back and grow.
So if someone is already in a Vistage group or an EO group, is this similar, or is there certain differences that you would say what you're getting from Energy is completely different or complementary?
I think, I have a little bit of experience with Vistage. I'm in strategic coach, and, here's what I will say about my limited knowledge of Vistage. It is a peer group. It is truly a peer group, and it is more organic, meaning it's kind of whatever needs to be talked about. It can go into the emotional stuff of a CEO. It can go into business stuff. It kind of can run the gambit for the CEO. And what I would say about Energy is this is a lot. It's, first of all, it's free. It's for a nonprofit. Energy is my nonprofit. Second of all, it is not a peer group. It's a community. Really, by definition, it is a community. It is a place to really sharpen your sword and your integrator's sword as you navigate this entrepreneurial path to mastery. Because I think that's the biggest thing I realized in my journey is I had to grab information from all these different places. And sure, Vistage is great, but you're only getting the CEO's perspective and only what gets into that room. Whereas Energy as a collective, its reach and what it can pull in is all contained on this foundation of Gino's wisdom. So we can pin pretty much every conversation to a step along that path. And then there are the who's in the room who've done that before. And I think that's what's really different, is there's somebody in the room who's done it before.
So is it just entrepreneurs, or is it other people in the business?
The way we think about it is EOS implementers are one of the who's who come. Entrepreneurs, so if you're 1 to 9 employees or 10 to 250 employees, you're welcome. And then integrators, or someone sitting in that right hand, the number 2 seat, someone who is serving as an integrator if you use the language of EOS and Rocket Fuel. And then finally, we have vetted, I call them thoughtful, because they have more to give than they're there to get, experts. So these are people who kind of live around the edges of entrepreneurial, businesses, but serve them. Like I think about the Sales Collective. I think about Titus Talent. I think about 90 and Strutty. All those folks solve some of the problems that get spun up along the path to mastery. So they're able to send representatives there to these meetings. But this isn't for your CFO down the street. This isn't for your director of operations. This is really for the entrepreneur, the integrator, the implementer, and then we have the right who's pre-vetted.
Okay. No, that does help clear it up. Now, you talk about the entrepreneur. We've kicked around the visionary. Do you use those interchangeably? Do you think every entrepreneur is a visionary? Every visionary is an entrepreneur?
I'm straying into a realm of Gino's definition, so I don't want to step on those. But here's what I think about. There is the solopreneur, and then there's a true entrepreneur. And this is coming right from eLeap. So this one I feel confident on, seeing as I'm a partner in it. Just think about the entrepreneurial range. And the entrepreneurial range says from the farthest left, you have the solopreneur, someone who's basically creating a job. Single franchise, they're going to do it by themselves. Once you start thinking about replacing yourselves in any way, shape, or form, or delegating that workload, you move on the right of this range. On the farthest right of the range, you've got the Elon Musks, the Walt Disney, the true visionary, right? Those crazy entrepreneurs out there. I would say anybody who crosses that line to where they're trying to have others do this work, they live in the true entrepreneur category. And they are therefore visionary because they have the visionary trait. what Gino defines as the 6 traits of an entrepreneur is they have the visionary trait. So therefore, by definition, they would be visionary. I use them interchangeably because I don't want anyone to not include themselves, especially entrepreneurs, because they don't see themselves as visionary. I found so often that entrepreneurs, and I saw this guy in the mirror too, who didn't believe they were an entrepreneur, didn't believe they were visionary, who had been told that they just needed a job.
Right. Yeah, the visionary is a pretty broad stroke too, because I kind of look at it as who you are as a person. There's that certain, especially from Rocket Fuel, I remember reading chapter 1. I'm like, holy crap, this whole chapter is about me. And it was like, even the checklist, I'm like, check, check, So understanding that as a person in the certain unique abilities and superpowers and so on, the adult ADD, the boredom I get, and all the things that I have that kind of make me that as a person. But then there's also, as EOS defines it, as the role, and the role is more of a CEO role.
Correct.
So I think that it does kind of cloud things, because I think that even beyond the role, and I have always said it will be a glorious day when I can hire a CEO to run my company, and I get to go do visionary stuff as an owner, not necessarily as the owner, as the operator. So I think that, so I don't want to pin myself into this visionary role, because I think what I am as a visionary is, and that's me thinking of the next best idea. And yeah, so many of them suck, just like most visionary ideas suck, but every now and then we have great ones, and we create successful businesses, and people are employed, so they can make fun of us all they want, but we are still calling the shots and creating. We're the people that are willing to run into the fire while everybody else is running away from the fire. I think that's another way to kind of describe that kind
they
of
are
person,
risk takers.
We see risk in a different kind of a way. We see risk and say, hold my beer.
You need to look at the 6 essential traits from ELEAP. I think you're going to go, oh, that's it.
Yeah.
Problem solver, passionate.
Right.
Like, I've been called passionate most of my life, and I didn't, I was kind of a rebel without a cause. This label of entrepreneur, and a visionary one at that. I like how you said, I would love to hire a CEO to run my company so I could do visionary stuff. That's exactly how I think about it. I love that. Mm-hmm. You either have it or you don't. And there's such a small percentage of the population that really has it. And it is lonely. And anybody who says otherwise is just, I think, lying to themselves, because you don't look at the world the same way. You're right. The hold my beer is exactly right. Like, oh, that fire? Well, I know how to fix that. Let's go.
That looks like fun.
Yeah. What's the worst that could happen?
No, don't wind me up, man. Don't wind me up. So no, I'm with you there, and that's, you're right. The loneliness is kind of a weird thing, because it's like, oh, woe me, from my ivory tower, right? But no, the loneliness as it stands from a standpoint is the things that we struggle with, the ideas that we want to have validated, the fears that we even have when we do face those risks, are not always the things that are relatable to the people that are closest to us in our lives. I would love nothing more than to go home and talk to my wife and say, this is what's on my mind. She'll be supportive. She'll be encouraging, but she won't have a clue of what the hell I'm talking about, because there's really hard for her to get to that level of empathy. So I seek that out. And, I'm involved in the EOS community, but also involved in things like Birth into Giants and Visionary Forum, because this, I've kind of identified as that's kind of my tribe of people that I can go, take off the mask that I wear during the day as the person that has it all together and figured out, and then go into those rooms and be like, I'm freaking out, man. I don't know if I can get over this. And they're like, no, hey man, we've been there. We got you. And here's what we did, or welcome to the club. So it does validate the failures, that you're not a failure, but it also validates some of the great ideas that you have, because some of the great ideas that I'll bring to my company, the team will be like, holy shit, he's going to give us whiplash again. We just got finished implementing the last great idea that he had. Or what is this change? This unknown is very scary to a lot of people, but I can see so many different layers of things that have to be implemented with that vision. And it's hard for me to always articulate the picture that I have in my head all they see is like, does that mean I'm getting fired, or I'm going to have to learn a new skill, or am I going to get replaced? That kind of weird stuff that creeps in their head. And I'm like, I didn't think about any of those things. I just thought about the possibilities. So it is very important. It sounds like even with energy, you're having these discussions, especially, and that's what I like about it, is the integrator and the visionary, or the COO and the CEO, is in the same room and hearing other CEOs and COOs having the same kind of challenges, and figuring out how they're communicating better through those challenges, and being able to take those experiences back. And I think that's that rocket fuel combo, that duo is, which is really where, I mean, you got to have somebody to think up the cool stuff to do, and then you actually have to have somebody that does it. And if you're waiting on me to get it done, you're going to be waiting a long ass time. So,
I love what you said about relatable. I really love that, because it isn't a woe is me lonely. It is that, and my wife is on the pinnacle of empathy, but it's like when I talk about some of the crazy stuff I'm up to, I know it goes in one ear out the other, not because she doesn't care. It's just like, it sounds like a foreign language. And so it is, that by itself is isolating. And so the fact that I know how involved you are, I know how helpful some of the things you're doing is to allow that space to, like, hey, this is my raw thought. I've never been able to say it, because to your point, change scares the most of the population. What scares me is the absence of change.
Yeah. And then that was always, so people say, Rufus, why do you want to grow the company? Is it, growth for the sake of growth? And I'm like, no, it's the thing that scares me most, is that the people that I invest in, the people that I'm developing within my company, if I'm going to make them as great as I believe that they are and they're capable of being, at some point, my competition is going to offer them a job. And when that day happens, I need to make sure that I'm always the best option. If I'm not the best option, they see the better opportunity leaving me to go do something else, I cannot fault them for that. That is my fault. Okay. I didn't create that opportunity. So that's what scares me the most, the thing that I've built crumbling because I'm not the most fertile ground for them to grow on. Does that make sense?
Oh, the fertile ground is so right. I've never framed it that way in my mind. And so I love that. I think I've done that unconsciously. And so to like get it in my brain now, it's fertile ground. And it's like, I just want a place where they can grow, where they can put roots down, where they can feel confident and stand up and shine and flower. Because I don't know how else to work. I wouldn't know what else to do. Like, that's what we're building. We're building something that lasts. We're building something that can sustain and solve.
And it's not completely altruistic either. I mean, it's the more success they find, technically the stronger the enterprise value of the company will grow. And I just happen to be the majority shareholder, so that's good for me. So our interests are absolutely in line.
It's okay to make money. It's okay. I make money to make meaning. I want to make a lot of meaning.
Yes. So talk about, have you thought much about your own exit strategy and what that might look like?
Yeah, I have. I really have. So when I started Next Level, I always knew as soon as I was crystal clear, I was like, I'm going to build this with the end in mind. Because I've seen a lot of businesses not build with the end in mind. And so my end was build an IP company, build really scalable systems and processes, put it all onto paper and into the system, and get out of the way as fast as possible. Only because if you're not building to leave, you're building I think you called it a cage. You're building a great cage. And part of why I stepped out into the entrepreneurial world is for freedom. And it was like, I saw that trap others had made, and I'm like, I'm going to try not to copy that trap. So that's why I wrote the book. That's why we have, I think we have like 4 or 5 registered trademarks now. I have clamped that down. And I've built an incredible team who really wants to learn the system, adopt it as their own, and then teach it to others. And that's, I spent a lot of my time thinking about that. I just know that will increase the value at the exit. And it's interesting. As soon as I put my mind towards that clearly, I had more of the right I would call the right decisions now. Do I make mistakes? Heck yeah, we all do. But I make a lot more of the right decisions, I think. like build us towards that.
Okay.
And it's funny just how much faster people link arms with you when they know what you're trying to do.
That's right. Well, I think that's a good place to start wrapping up. Kyle, I appreciate you being here. What do you want anybody who's either listening or viewing this podcast to be able to contact you? What links can we put up on screen?
Definitely do energy.life. So that's the where for your who's and how's, right? It's the community for you. Please check me out on LinkedIn. So just Kyle Mealy on LinkedIn. Connect with me. I'm always up to something. And if you are interested in Next Level, I come from the group where it's like, I'm going to give you all the answers. You could probably take all the IP, install it yourself, and never hire us. And I don't gate any of my crap, except I think there's one gate, which is for a free chapter of the book. So my website it's mouthy because you're going to end up just searching Next Level Revenue or Kyle Mealy anyway, but it's readyforthenextlevel.com.
And we'll put it all up on screen so our viewers will be able to see it, and it'll be in the comments. So wherever you consume your podcast, it'll be available to you. But again, I want to be respectful of your time because there's so many other topics I'd love to dive in deeper with you, and I've always enjoyed our conversations. And I will say that about you as far as the Next Level Revenue. I love how you wrote that book. You're just giving it away, and that's even the spirit of the book that I have coming out is all about the financial planning process, which basically says you don't need to hire a planner. Here, just follow these things. Because the do-it-yourselfers are going to do it themselves anyway. At least give them the right way to do it. Okay. But the people who are being honest with themselves that says, I can do this, but I maybe shouldn't do it by myself. Those are the people that we want to work with anyway. So I love how you're just giving it away. So it's saying, okay, we're not kind of holding it close to the chest. You have to pay us to have the secret formula. I've always thought that was such a great approach. So I appreciate that about you.
I appreciate you. Thanks for having me on.
You bet.
Thanks for tuning in to Constructive Interference. If you've enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a fellow visionary. Keep dreaming big, and remember, the only limits are the ones you set for yourself. Until next time, stay sharp.